Once again, good morning po sa inyo lahat. So, welcome po sa panibago nating lessons para sa umaga na ito. So, lagi lang po na tingnan yung ating Google Classroom para po sa kung meron mga magkakaroon ng update para doon sa schedule natin for the entire May. Okay, so ngayon, ang tatalakayin po natin ay Cold War, the emergence of the Third World, and yung the China-Taiwan conflict. Pero alam ko na meron tayo na hindi natapos na paksa or topic doon sa United Nations. So let's begin with the Sustainable Development Goals as, launching pad para unawain yung topic na hindi po nating na-discuss. So once again, we have the United Nations as an intergovernmental body that is making sure na hindi maulit yung horrors of the past 2 wars. Okay, so you will remember that the League of Nations, the post that was established after World War I, did not actually accomplish its mandate to maintain international peace and security kasi very tumultuous yung post-World War I state of the world dahil sa Great Depression, tapos yung political imbalance in different parts of the world na naging dahilan para magkaroon ng panibagong digmaan. Unfortunately, we live in a time na kahit na mayroong mga hostilities sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, hindi naman pa ito nag-escalate into a global conflict. And we have here, nakikita nyo po sa inyong screen. I would like to ask kung nakikita nyo na po pala itong nasa screen natin. Please confirm. Okay, thank you very much. You're seeing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. All these goals are aimed to transform our world. And hopefully by 2030, ma-accomplish ang 17 po na ito, which I doubt na ma-accomplish. And for sure, after 2030, merong panibagong, wordings, para ipagpatuloy yung mga nakikita nyo po na goals dito. So lahat ng ito ay tinatrabaho ng United Nations para ma-make sure na magkaroon tayo ng isang harmonious na mundo sa kabila ng mga problema na kinakaharap po sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, particular po doon sa mga member nations ng United Nations. So you ma-make sure na walang kahirapan, na walang nagugutom na tao, na ma-make sure na yung mga tao sa mundo ay merong good health and well-being, meron silang quality education, merong pagkakapantay-pantay sa usapin ng kasarian or gender, na mapanatili yung clean water and sanitation, tapos magkaroon ng affordable at malinis na sources of energy, magkaroon ng decent work at mag-translate into economic growth, yung magkaroon ng mahusay na industry, innovation, and infrastructure sa mga bansa, mabawasan yung mga hindi pagkakapantay-pantay o inequalities, yung magkaroon tayo ng mga sustainable na mga syudad at mga komunidad, ma-make sure na magkaroon tayo ng responsible consumption at production, yung action natin sa lumalalang climate crisis, yung pagsiguro natin na okay ang buhay sa ilalim ng dagat, ganun din ang buhay sa kalupaan, at pagkakaroon ng kapayapaan, hustisya at strong institutions, at yung pagpapartner ng iba't ibang mga organisasyon at mga tao o individual para ma-achieve ang mga goals na nabanggit ko. Lahat ng ito ay iba't ibang mukha ng pagnanais ng United Nations na maging matagumpay sa kanyang mandate. So babalikan ninyo yung 4 na goals ng United Nations in general kung bakit ito nabuo. At dyan natin ipapasok yung hindi po natin natalakay. Yan po ay demokrasya. So meron po dito na parang situation worksheet. At ito po, ang tanong po na pangunahin ay, why do so many people want democracy? So allow me to read the situation. So isipin niyo that your grandparents came to the US of A because they wanted to live in a democracy. And the Filipino community in the United States of America is actually a very big community. So maraming mga Pilipino ever since na maging kolonya tayo ng Amerika, ang nagtungo talaga sa United States of America para magbagong buhay at para makipagsapalaran. Although that was more than 50 years ago, you know that people in many parts of the world still seek democracy. On the news, you watch stories about protesters who are demanding more democracy and freedom. Their demonstrations are often led by students. May fresh energy kasi. And sometimes help to bring about democratic reform. Very idealistic din kasi ang kabataan. One evening, you and your friend are watching a news story about a leader who has promised his or her people greater democracy. What might you answer when your friend asks why so many people want democracy? So, meron po tayong sasagutan. I do hope that you participate by way of answering the questions po by unmuting yourselves, or pwede rin naman po sa ating chat box. Babasahin na lang po natin. So the first question is, what rights and institutions are necessary for government to be democratic? And secondly, how do citizens participate in a democracy? And how can participation be encouraged? So I'm giving you 30 seconds to think about your answers po. Tapos, after 30 seconds po, feel free po to click the raise hand button and unmute yourself para po sumagot. Pwede rin po mag-key in ang sagot sa ating chat box. Okay, 30 seconds. Rubidium. Why do so many people want democracy? Okay? Sino po ang gusto mag-share ng kanilang thoughts about the questions? We begin with question number 1. What rights and institutions are necessary for government to be democratic? Sige nga po. Anyone from the class? Okay, Miss Castañeda.
I think the most important right that has to be maintained in a democratic government is freedom of speech, because the main thought process of democracy is that everybody can get a say on what they want to happen and what will happen in their lives and living in that place. And I think another thing that should also be in democracy is like a limit for people with power, because while it's important that we have officials, it's also important that they know that they have a limit on what they're doing, so that the people don't get affected and it doesn't go too far from democracy, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. Kung papansinin po natin, pag pinag-uusapan natin yung konsepto ng demokrasya at yung mga kaakibat na human rights or karapatang pantao, kasama na yung binention ni Ms. Castañeda kanina na yung freedom of speech, makikita natin na pwede nating balikan actually yung panahon ng Enlightenment. Ito yung panahon kung saan talagang yung mga philosophers, ay pinag-isipan yung usapin po ng power or kapangyarihan. Na meron nga isa doon, si Baron de Montesquieu, na nagsabi na power should be a check to power. Ibig sabihin, ito yung Peter Parker principle na with great power comes great responsibility. Dito papasok yung sinabi ni Ms. Castañeda na hindi pwedeng absolute yung power in a democracy. Kailangan na meron pa ring checks and balances, at kailangan na merong paraan ang isang demokrasya to make sure na hindi maabuso yung kapangyarihan. At yung abuse of power na ito, yung policies in relation to these will actually come from the experience of that particular nation sa usapin po ng exercise ng kanyang demokrasya. So yung sinabi ni Ms. Castañeda na freedom of speech ay isa sa napakaraming karapatan na iginagawad or ibinibigay sa mga tao in a democratic society. And we have certain institutions na nandiyan sa lipunan para i-make sure na masisafeguard yung mga karapatan po natin. Isang halimbawa po niyan sa napakaraming institutions ay yung Commission on Human Rights. no, na na-establish after the Marcos dictatorship. It's very important kasi every now and then we hear and encounter issues pertaining to human rights, at yung Commission on Human Rights actually helps in clarifying issues regarding yung mga karapatan na dapat ay tinatamasa po natin. No? So, yung institution po na ito, amongst other institutions po na nandyan sa lipunan natin na nag-safeguard ng iba't iba nating karapatan, ay mahalaga para ma-make sure na ma-maximize natin bilang mga tao yung potential natin as human beings in the context of a democracy. Kaya in spite of the flaws, no, in spite of the kakulangan ng demokrasya, marami talagang mga taong naniniwala sa kapangyarihan or power ng demokrasya. Demos Kratos, rule of the people. So second question, salamat Ms. Castañeda for that wonderful answer. So second question, how do citizens participate in a democracy? And how can participation be encouraged? Sige nga, paano ba nagpa-participate ang mga mamamayan? That's the salin or translation of citizen into Filipino. Mamamayan, no? Sa isang demokrasya, paano ba sila nagpa-participate? Once again, you can click the raise hand button, tapos i-unmute nyo po ang inyong sarili, or pwede rin po kayo mag-key in ng inyong sagot sa ating chat box. Babasahin na lamang po natin. So, we are on the second question na po. Rubidium? So, as of 9:32, we have 19 students in attendance. Okay, sino pong gustong sumagot? Doon sa ating second question. Anyone? Participate po tayo. Let's go. Anyone, guys? How do citizens participate in a democracy? And how can participation be encouraged? Okay, itry nga natin si Troy Serapio. Troy, can you answer question number 2?
Hello pa.
Okay.
So, citizens participate in a democracy by being able to have a voice, in a sense, like they're able to express their opinions and also be able to have a decision on things that concern them. For example, elections, where they can cast a vote to which person they want to lead their country, in a sense. And then participation can be encouraged by showing how democracy is effective in being able to, and also showing that, yeah, the democracy is effective by, for example, having great leaders, or showing that by participating in democracy, you're able to have a better society compared to if it was all just dictated, or if they do not have a voice.
Okay, very good point, no? So you mentioned kanina yung pagboto, no? Yun yung parang sinasabi nila na pinakapangunahin na paraan ng pag-participate ng mga mamamayan or citizens, no, sa isang democratic society, no? Pero gusto ko lang sabihin na gaano man kahalaga ang eleksyon or halalan, no, at yung pagboto, pag-exercise ng right to vote, mahalaga na hindi natatapos sa halalan or sa election ang role mo bilang isang botante at bilang isang citizen ng isang bansa, kagaya ng Pilipinas. Dapat na binabantayan mo ang boto mo, hindi lang on the day of the vote counting, no? Binabantayan mo ang boto mo nang sa ganoon, when you vote again, no, sa susunod na election, informed pa rin yung decision mo kung sino yung pinakamainam, pinakamagaling na leader na i-elect mo sa mga key positions. So kasi ang mistake ng marami ay para bagang nag-i-end na sa election, pag sila ay nakaboto na, nag-i-end na dun yung yung trabaho. Pero actually hindi nag-i-end dun ang trabaho kasi kailangan nating pantayan yung mga public officials natin kung talagang winowalk nila yung kanilang talk noong election. Ibig sabihin kung kanila bang ina-exercise talaga at ginagampanan yung kanilang mga ipinangako at yung kanilang mga sinasabi na gagawin nila sa kanilang mga plataforma. At kung malinis ang kanilang pagtatrabaho. Kasi, kagaya ng sinabi ni Troy, mahalaga din sa demokrasya yung pag-voice out ng iyong opinion eh. Especially kapag nakikita mo na hindi nagtatrabaho efficiently yung mga public officials mo. In the very first place, pag sinalin mo nga actually salitang public servant, lingkod bayan, naglilingkod sa bayan. Ibig sabihin, nagsaserve sa bayan. So therefore, tayo talagang mga tao yung makapangyarihan sa bayan na ito. Unfortunately, in the context of Philippine democracy, it's as if na talagang merong control over us yung mga politicians. Pero if we only realize na we can vote them out, kung tayo lahat ng yung majority ng mga Filipino no ay talagang informed when it comes to certain issues no affecting us, no? At kung ano yung stands dito ng mga politiko na tumatakbo, they can easily be voted out by these people. Kaya mag-step up din sila sa kanilang game na talagang magiging competitive sila. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that, no? In the Philippines, no? In contemporary times, especially, no? So, yun ang nakakalungkot. Though we want to encourage people to be vocal, and to register to vote kapag ikaw ay nasa tamang edad na. Of course, dapat pa rin na nasa konteksto yan na yung mga sistema po sa lipunan natin ay nagpa-function effectively. Kasi yan po yung puhunan, yan po yung foundation po ng isang healthy and working democracy. So kayo, in the future, will become the leaders no, of this nation. I do hope na i-uphold ninyo yung mga democratic principles at i-uphold po ninyo yung tama. Kasi in spite of the flaws, in spite of the kakulangan, as I have mentioned kanina ng democracy, sinasabi ng maraming tao na this is the best type no, of government system na mayroon po sa mundo ngayon. Kasi yung mga tao, they get to decide on what they want to be at they enter negotiations no with other people. It's part of democracy, no, it's part of democracy. Pero pinakamainam pa rin talaga na makikita natin kung ano yung lakas or strength ng democracy, at the same time ano yung weakness niyan in the context of our experience as a nation. Sabi nga no sa Article 1 ng Universal Declaration of Human Rights, by the way, thank you Troy no sa iyong very insightful na sagot. Sabi nga dito sa article na ito, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So makita natin dyan yung emphasis on solidarity, no? Yung emphasis on yung pagkakaroon ng reason and conscience, no? At yung konsepto ng you are born free at pantay-pantay tayo sa usapin po ng dignidad at karapatan. Regardless of your racial background, regardless of your ethnicity, of the religion that you profess, your economic status, lahat dapat tayo ay pantay-pantay. That's why we have the legal system to make sure that these concepts are enshrined no, sa araw-araw nating ginagawa. Unfortunately na naman, in reality, we encounter several situations that would actually put to the test yung mga konsepto na ito. But then again, we have the law and we have the institutions no, in place in society para meron tayong matatakbuhan in case that we feel that our rights are violated. Okay. Ano ba yung mga rights na ito? So, ayan po yung mga rights. Nakikita nyo po. I would like to ask, nakikita nyo yung mga rights? I would just like to confirm if you're seeing yung rights. Okay, thank you very much. Ano yung mga rights na ito? Okay. Right to education, assembly, association, movement, religion, speech, information, press, thought, etc., etc. So, lahat ng ito ay nandyan at pinoprotektahan ng lipunan no, para ma-maximize ng tao yung kanyang potential as a human being. Lahat ng ito ay, kumbaga, nagtataguyod sa humanity ng mga tao. So, kung papansinin po natin, no, pwede nating iugat ito. Actually, syempre, automatic yan sa Enlightenment period. Pero yung konsepto ng humanistic values, diba, saan natin yan pwedeng maugat? Saan yan pwedeng ma-root? Or parang ma-trace? Anong period na napag-aralan natin in the past? Sige nga, pwede nyo isagot sa chat box po. Anong period yon? Humanistic values. Renaissance, yes. Diba? Renaissance in the 15th century. Yung panahon na question ang parang eventually, no, because of the Reformation that will set in, no, mga-question yung yung authority ng simbahan at yung control nito dun sa lives ng mga tao. And all of a sudden, during that time, people will start coming out of the box and exploring mundane things na previously ay frowned upon ng simbahan. Pero eventually, magkakaroon ng lakas ng loob ng mga tao kasi, kumbaga, pinupursu na nila yung kanilang mga endeavors kasi, kumbaga, mababawasan ng impluwensya sa kanilang mga buhay yung simbahan. Okay, so, at from then on, mas magkakaroon, of course, sila ng interest to actually determine yung iba't iba pa nilang mga karapatan. Okay. Ngayon, I would like to share you this statement from the 2018 State of the Nation address of our former President, Rodrigo Duterte. Ang sabi niya dun sa kanyang speech, this one actually is very, very controversial. And I would like you guys to point out bakit ito controversial. Okay. Sabi kasi ni Duterte, no, your concern is human rights, referring to human rights groups and other non-governmental agencies and organizations. Ang concern daw ni Duterte at ng kanyang government is human lives. And when he said these words, naging very, very controversial ito. Maraming criticisms ang binato sa mga salita niya na ito. And I would like to ask you to medium, bakit controversial ang mga salita na ito ni former President Rodrigo Duterte? Sige nga, basahin nyo. Your concern is human rights. Mine is human lives. No? From the perspective of Rodrigo Duterte. Sige nga, bakit siya controversial? Tingin ninyo. Okay, anyone who wants to answer this Okay, sige. Miss Therese, pero bago, okay, pwede kayong magsagot sa magsagot sa ating dito sa chat box po, no? So, entertain ko muna si Miss Castañeda, tapos of course, papasukin nyo lang yung inyong sagot dyan sa ating chat box. Babasahin po natin. Okay, Miss Castañeda?
Because technically, how can you really have a human life without these human rights? Because being human, part of being human is having these rights. Because like without them, it's like they say that you're going to be treated like an animal and like that. So, if he says that, it's basically counterproductive with what he exactly wants because it means he doesn't have complete concern over people as a whole. Yeah.
Okay. Maganda yung word na sinabi mo na yung concern sa mga tao na para bagang magkahiwalay itong dalawa na sa totoo ay hindi naman siya magkahiwalay. Tama yung sinasabi ni Miss Castañeda. Paano ka magbibigay ng importansya sa human lives kung yung karapatan ng mga tao ay hindi mo papahalagahan? Hindi mo nga pwedeng i-separate yung dalawa. Kaya ka merong mga ine-enshrine na mga human rights, mga tinukoy na human rights, yung minention ko kanina, ilan yun sa mga human rights po natin. Kasi you want to make sure na yung human lives are protected. No, isang halimbawa, yung right to speech, no, paano mo mapaghihiwalay yung karapatan ng tao na magsabi ng gusto niya doon sa sa kakayahan ng tao mismo na makapagsabi in a context na hindi siya ma-harm kapag nagsabi siya ng anything na dissenting doon sa sinasabi ng majority. So yung sinasabi na ito dating Pangulo Rodrigo Duterte sa kanyang 2018 SONA speech ay contradicting kasi hindi mo paghihiwalay ang human rights sa human lives. Okay. And kung papalakihin ulit natin ito in the context of efforts na ginagawa po ng United Nations, of course, yung sa minention po natin kanina na Sustainable Development Goals, lahat ng yon ay oriented towards different rights of humans in general po. Kaya nga, we end this by having this quote, okay, by Norman Cousins. Sabi niya, if the United Nations is to survive, those who represent it must bolster it. Ibig sabihin, kung sino man yung mga nasa key positions, at definitely ito yung mga member states, at yung key positions yung mga merong mga katungkulan. And of course, nandiyan yung member states nga, as I have mentioned. Lahat sila ay dapat na magtulong-tulong para mas mapalakas pa, mas strengthen pa ang mandate ng United Nations. Pangalawa, those who advocate it must submit to it. You must recognize the power of the United Nations. You must recognize the authority of the United Nations. And you must actually entertain all efforts by the United Nations kasi lahat ng ito ay moving towards a more harmonious world. And those who believe in it, dun sa soul of the United Nations, must fight for it. Kasi in spite of the flaws of the United Nations as an intergovernmental body, wala tayong ibang matatakbuhan na mas malaking body kapag nagkaroon ng mas malalaking kaguluhan sa mundo po natin. So once again, in spite of its difficulties and in spite of its flaws and yung kanyang mga shortcomings, as a body, the United Nations is doing its very best para ma-prevent not only another war, pero ma-prevent na tayo ay parang mapunta sa isang sitwasyon na mahirap talaga. Both economically and politically. Okay, so ganun kahalaga yung United Nations. So pinupush talaga niya yung demokrasya kasi yung sa demokrasya, ito ay very compatible with empowering yung mga tao. Okay, unfortunately, if we look into Philippine democracy as our specimen, makita natin na medyo marami pang improvements sa kailangan gawin sa demokrasya po natin. And yun ang gusto kong itanong sa inyo bago natin tungkuhin ang next nating topic, yung Cold War. Ano sa tingin nyo ang mga dapat nating trabahuhin about our democracy, Philippine democracy? Once again, you may key in your answer sa ating mga chat box and I encourage you guys to participate sa pamagitan ng pag-key in ng inyong mga sagot. Ano yung mga dapat nating trabahuhin? Ano yung mga dapat nating i-push pa sa ating, ano ba mga nakikita nyo mga problema ng ating Philippine democracy? Mga kailangan natin trabahuhin. Kasi bawat democracies sa mundo may kanya-kanyang challenges eh. What are the particular challenges Philippine democracy face today? Sige nga. Pwede nyo pong i-key ang inyong sagot. Rubidium. Sa 22 students here, magkikiin lang eh. Kailangan nyo din pag-isipan po yung sagot. You have to participate. Magkikiin na lang. Hindi na ako namimilit na sumagot kung kayo ay nahihiyang sumagot sa pamagitan ng pag-raise ng hand. You just have to type. Okay, not enough political stability. Well, I will agree with you, Mr. Calixto, with that kasi ang dami nating parties. Tapos, meron tayong problema with regard to what these parties actually represent, ideologically speaking. Kumbaga, marami tayong problema with regard to yung paglipat-lipat ng mga partido. So we cannot really say ano yung mga particular political stance ng mga partido na ito. Transparency, definitely. No? Transparency. Vote buying is one as well. Oo. Yung parang we have actually people na nagpapabili ng kanilang boto. At bakit merong ganito? Diba? At bakit merong mga politiko na gumagamit nito? Cyclical din siya. Diba? Meron parang ugnayan din talaga. Okay. Ano pa? I need 2 more answers. So maganda yung mga nababanggit po dito. Not enough political stability, we have transparency, and we have vote buying. I think pwede rin nating isama dito yung political intimidation, no? Ibig sabihin, especially yung karaniwang tao, yung common tao, na mabilis silang ma-intimidate, kaya hindi na sila magsasalita. Problema din yun. Na parang hindi informed yung mga tao about their basic rights. No, parang they are easily intimidated by power. So, ayun po. So, thank you very much, no, dun sa tatlong nag-iin ng kanilang mga sagot. Very nice answers, actually. Okay, let's move forward. Though, kahapon ko lang yata na-upload yung LGs about the Cold War. So, parang basahin nyo pa rin po kasi after po ng Cold War discussion po natin, itong discussion po natin ngayong umaga na ito ay meron kayong quiz, pero ito po ay online. Okay, so pag-usapan po natin ang Cold War. So ano nga ba ang Cold War? So simply put, ang Cold War po, it was not really a direct battle between the Soviets and the Americans. Merong mga proxy wars. Merong mga naglaban in the name of 2 ideologies. So it all started because of the ideological conflict between the Soviets and the Americans. The other one was supportive of democratic capitalism, and the other one naman was supportive of totalitarian communism. So definitely magkaiba po yan. Therefore, magkakaroon talaga sila ng conflict sa isa't isa. So yung Americans po, they were supportive of obviously, yung democratic capitalism. At yung mga Ruso, yung mga Soviets naman po ay yung communism naman yung kanilang sinusuportahan. So, sa usapin ng politics and economics, merong pagkakaiba ng orientation. Kasi yung dalawa na yun, isang halimbawa, yung democracy, sinasabi na meron siyang compatible na economic system. At ang sinasabi nila na compatible na economic system is no other than capitalism. So sa communism naman ay yung socialism din, no, na klase ng ng orientation. Though sa iba sinasabi nila na pwede mong paghiwalay yon, pero usapin ito ng parang control of the people, no, pagdating sa means of production po. Okay. So ngayon, kung hindi ito direct battle between 2 giants, no, yung Amerika at saka yung Soviet Union, paano nagkaroon ng conflict ang dalawang giants na ito? So, pwede natin tingnan niya sa usapin po ng espionage. Okay, spy versus spy. KGB versus CIA. So, gusto ng bawat isa na ma-outwit yung isa, ma-outwit yung isa pa. No? If actually panoorin niyo yung pelikula na The Shape of Water, maganda yung Shape of Water kasi nasa context siya ng Cold War. So baka may nakapanood na sa inyo nun. It's a film na nominate sa Oscars in the years past. At as I have mentioned, nasa context siya ng Cold War. Ang kwento niya, hindi ako mag-i-spoil para panoorin niyo pa rin, meron natuklasan ng mga Amerikano na isang mysterious creature from somewhere in South America. Tapos, nilagay nila yung creature na ito sa isang secret facility. Kasi they want to actually study this creature at yung kanyang mga strengths at yung kanyang mga kakayahan, kasi they want to mimic, no, they want to actually maximize yung kakayahan ng creature para mamimic ito para magamit against the other party. So nasa context ng Cold War, definitely meron kang dinedevelop na technology na pwede mong kailanganin in the future para matalo yung kabilang partido. So naging very, very important yung espionage for both, no, para ma-accomplish nila yung kanilang mga gustong ma-accomplish. Secondly, nagkaroon ng arms race, no, nuclear escalation. Dito mababanggit po natin yung MAD, yung mutually assured destruction, na kapag ginamit mo yung mga dinevelop mo na nuclear weapons, eventually ma-annihilate yung kabilang partido, yung kalaban mo, at ikaw din ma-annihilate. Ganun siya ka-powerful kasi na pinaperceive, no? So, dumarating sa punto ng brinkmanship. Pag sinabing brinkmanship, na para bagang there were certain events, no, in world history na para bagang nalagay na talaga sa parang dulo, almost, yung sitwasyon, na kung naging worse pa ang sitwasyon ay parang, ayun na, mas nagkaroon na talaga ng malaking kaguluhan, no, dala po ng nuclear escalation po na ito. At hindi lang arms race, guys, no, isama ko na rin po yung space race, yung labanan po ng Amerika at saka ng sa pagpunta sa outer space, particularly po doon sa buwan. Okay, lahat ng ito ay para mapakita sa mundo na kami ay mas advanced kaysa sa inyo. Pangatlo, of course, di ba? Hindi siya direct battle between the Soviets and the Americans, no? Pero ito po ay ideological competition nga between democratic capitalism and totalitarian communism. So therefore, yung ibang mga bansa na gusto maging parang maging favorable sila sa mata ng mga Amerikano o ng mga Soviets would actually adhere to what these two giants believe in. So nagkaroon ng ideological competition para makakuha ng suporta yung Amerika at saka yung mga Ruso or mga Soviets sa iba't ibang mga bansa. At ginamit po nila, guys, ang financial aid. Ginamit nila ang kanilang kayamanan para ma-persuade at para malagay sa kanilang clout ang mga bansa po na ito. And that led to the bipolarization of Europe. Bipolarization. Bi means dalawa, no? Polarization, ibig sabihin ay nagkaroon talaga ng dalawang magkaiba na grupo, no? The other one is actually supportive of the states, and the other one naman is supportive of the Soviets, as enshrined by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the one established na Warsaw Pact. Ito naman po ay dun sa Soviet Union. So talking about yung tinatawag ko kanina na parang nalalagay na dun sa dulo, yung parang kapag umapaw na yung glass, no, nag-tip off na, mas magiging katakot-takot yung magiging sitwasyon. So we have here events that reflected the US-Soviet Union conflict. So we have the Cuban Missile Crisis, no. The Americans actually wanted Fidel Castro out of Cuban government. That's why they supported lahat ng efforts para mapatalsik itong si Fidel Castro. Pero di sila nagtagumpay. And eventually that led to an escalation of tension between the States and Cuba. And the Soviets took that opportunity to support the government of Fidel Castro. Tapos nung nalaman ng mga Amerikano na merong siniship ang Soviet Union na mga armas sa Cuba, ay kanila ito, parang kinordon off nila ang Cuba sa mga papasok na mga arms shipment na ito. No? Ito po ay sinasabi ng ilang mga scholars na response ng Soviet Union sa mas maaga ng pagpapadala ng mga arms o ng mga weapons at ng mga iba pang armaments ng Amerika sa Turkey. At ang Turkey, kung titignan po natin sa mapa, ay kumbaga mas malapit po sa Soviet Union. So parang parang retaliation to on the part of the Soviet Union. Nagkaroon ng Cuban Missile Crisis. Fortunately, No, kasi talagang ano na lang parang talagang very highly tense yung sitwasyon during this time. No, nagkaroon ng pag-uusap, no, si Kennedy at si Nikita Khrushchev, no, at eventually ay nag-end yung dispute. Pero hindi nag-end yung ideological tension sa pagitan ng Amerika at saka ng mga Soviets. Nagpatuloy po siya. Nandiyan din of course ang Korean War. No, yung 38 parallel, wag niyong kakalimutan, ito po yung army boundary ng North at saka ng South. At after World War II kasi, no, yung North po, they surrendered, no? They surrendered doon sa sa mga Russians, at yung South naman po ay nag-surrender sa mga Americans. And dahil eventually ay naging sour ang relasyon ng Amerika at ng Soviet Union, ng Russia, kaya nanatili yung army boundary po na ito. By the way, no, prior to the Cold War, to a certain extent, okay naman ang States at saka ang Russia. Okay naman sila. Pero naging prominent yung conflict sa pagitan nilang dalawa when World War II kumbaga ended. Natapos yung digmaan. No? Kasi of course, during that time, kung meron kang desire to actually change yung balance of power, no, you want to do that in your favor, no, at nagkaroon ng pagnanais ang Amerika at ang Soviet Union na eventually na maging favorable sa kanila yung post-war situation. That's why these things happened po. And of course, andyan yung ceasefire agreement between UN and North Korea. No, the South being supported by the Americans up to this day, and the North being considered as a rogue nation by many in the international community. No? So, sabi nila, if you go down to North Korea, actually you can secure a passport if you go to China, if I'm not mistaken. Tapos, kapag ikaw ay pumunta sa North Korea, talagang bantay sarado ka. Kasi of course, based on yung mga naririnig ko at saka nabasa ko ng mga stories from foreigners who visited North Korea na hindi madalas talagang binibisita at bihirang papasukin ng mga foreigners, ay talagang bantay sarado talaga yung mga tao at saka mga pumapasok doon sa North Korea kasi they wanted to control as much as possible yung information that will get out of North Korea na mapupunta sa West. No, kasi meron silang project na parang image na parang in spite of not being supported by many in the international community, they are thriving as a nation. Na contrary to yung mga nagde-defect, no? Yung mga defectors na yung mga umaalis na in secret, tsaka talagang tumatakas palabas ng North Korea, ay iba yung kanilang kwento talaga na they were living in harsh conditions in North Korea. And according to one, ang kanyang description of North Korea was South Korea in the 1950s. So kumbaga, parang na-frozen in time, natigil in time ang North Korea. It is Korea daw. It is Korea but in the 1950s. Kapag pumunta ka sa South Korea, if you go to its cities, most notably yung Seoul, no, its center, makita mo kung gaano ka-highly advanced ito, no, as a city. Very different from Pyongyang, no, the capital city of North Korea. And of course, another event that reflected the US-Soviet Union conflict ay walang iba kundi ang infamous Vietnam War. No, so makita natin ang leading figure po dito is Ho Chi Minh, no, Ho Chi Minh, sa kanya pinangalan yung syudad ng Saigon, no? At yung France kasi wanted to regain, no, Vietnam after World War II, pero eventually ayaw na itong mangyari ng mga Vietnamese nationalists, kaya nagkaroon ng tinatawag po natin na Vietnam War. Pero pumasok na rin sa eksena dito yung Chinese communism at ayaw ng Amerika na lumaganap pang lalo yung communism kasi naniniwala sila sa domino theory. Now once na mag-succumb ang isang bansa sa communism, yung mga kapitbahay mahahawa na din ng communism na parang sakit. That's why as much as possible, they want to actually amputate, no, yung communism by way of supporting nations sa pamamagitan ng digmaan or providing financial aid po. Itong Vietnam War, highly controversial ito kasi, kumbaga, nangialam daw talaga dito yung mga Amerikano. Ngayon, eventually, nagkaroon ng clamor ang American public during that time to actually pull out of Vietnam. Okay, so ganun nga ang nangyari. At nagkaroon eventually ng reunification of Vietnam. And Vietnam, sa kasalukuyang panahon, is a thriving economy. Mas malaki, if I'm not mistaken, ang ekonomiya ng Vietnam ngayon kaysa sa Pilipinas. Okay. And also, madagdag ko lang din, yung participation po natin dyan sa Vietnam War, actually ay sa pamamagitan ng pag-accept ng mga refugees. Naalala niyo yung kinuwento ko sa inyo na during the time of yung Jewish persecution, merong ilang mga Jewish people na nakarating sa Pilipinas na tinanggap noong panahon ni Quezon. May tinatawag na Quezon's Jews. No, pero yung pinaka-pamoso yung Schindler's Jews na naging inspirasyon ng pelikulang Schindler's List, no, ni Steven Spielberg. Tapos, sa Vietnam naman po, may mga tinatawag na boat people. So, umalis yung mga Vietnamese dahil they were persecuted, tsaka magulo doon sa Vietnam during this time, no? So, some fled the country by way of boats. No? Kaya tinatawag silang boat people. Some settled in Bataan, and some settled in Palawan. That's why there's this place in Palawan na kahit wala na talaga yung mga Vietnamese, isa sa mga hinahain nila sa mga sa mga karinderya nila ay isang uri ng noodle soup na in-introduce ng mga Vietnamese. Tapos meron actually nag-stay ng mga Vietnamese in Palawan, yung nagkaasawa na ng mga taga Palawan. Tapos sa Bataan, ayun, meron din po na mga Vietnamese refugees. Na noong panahon ni Duterte, yung area na tinirahan po ng mga Vietnamese refugees ay na-transform into rehabilitation centers for drug addicts. Okay, moving forward. No, so do not forget that the alliance of the United States of America and the Soviet Union helped the Allied powers to become victorious against the Axis powers during World War II. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na to a certain extent, they were friendly naman. Pero eventually, magkakaroon sila ng difference in ideology. Tapos eventually, ito yung magiging dahilan para magkaroon sila ng tension sa isa't isa. No? Dun sa kanilang understanding of the post-war world. No? And of course, this nation, the United States of America, wanting to become more powerful. Tapos the Soviet Union's wanting to prevent that from happening. So makikita niyo po dito yung pagkakaiba ng perspectives ng mga Amerikano at ng mga Soviets. So sa Amerika, galing din po to sa inyong LG. They encouraged democracy in other countries to help prevent the rise of communist governments. There was a time, by the way, in Philippine history that they supported actually efforts to quell communist insurgency in the country. Kasi they are actually afraid of communism taking root in the country. Kasi they know na kapag nangyari po yan, yung mga yung mga opportunities nila na pinupush ng mga Amerikano will not actually be pursued anymore. So they want to gain access to raw materials and markets to fuel booming industries. So may pagka-economic yung kanilang motivation dito. Of course, if you are communist, you don't subscribe to a capitalist orientation in the economy. Therefore, iba yung pananaw mo pagdating sa profit. No? So parang hindi siya compatible with how the Americans actually understand yung sitwasyon. They rebuilt European governments to promote stability and, guys, to create new markets for US goods. So how can they market US goods, no, sa mga bagong markets na makikreate kung ito ay nag-adhere to communism? Kasi walang magiging yung ganyang market. Di ba? Walang magiging ganyan na parang sitwasyon. They reunite Germany, no, to stabilize it and increase the security in Europe. Okay. Na kabaligtaran naman sa gusto ng Soviet Union na they want to keep Germany divided because they were afraid na kapag na-unite ang Germany ay mag-wage ito ng war once again. So other things na gusto ng Soviet Union ay they encourage communism in other countries as part of the worldwide workers' revolution. So nandyan po yung yung ideology pa rin ni Lenin. So rebuild its war-ravaged economy using Eastern Europe's industrial equipment and raw materials. By the way, yung Eastern Europe kasi naging baluarte po yan ng mga Russians, ng mga Soviets. Tapos, they wanted to control Eastern Europe to protect Soviet borders and balance the US influence in Western Europe. Kasi Western Europe ay naka-take root na dyan talaga yung democratic capitalism ng mga Amerikano. So they wanted to make sure na hindi na yan magagapang. Hindi na yan gagapang dito sa kanilang bloke, sa kanilang block. Okay, so ito po yun. Yung minimension ko kanina na parang division, yung Iron Curtain. A term coined by Winston Churchill. It's actually a line separating Europe-Soviet Eastern Bloc from the democratic Western Bloc. Basta isipin nyo guys, huwag nyo kakalimutan, yung Eastern, communist. Yung Western po, ito po ay democratic. No, in the context po of the Cold War. So Eastern Europe ay leaning towards Soviet Union. Tapos yung Western Europe, kasama po dyan yung France, of course, leaning towards US naman sila. Tapos andyan din yung yung Truman Doctrine. Ito, tingnan nyo yung yung kanyang definition. In this document, the United States will aid foreign countries tulad ng Turkey and Greece endangered by communist expansion of the Soviet Union. Ibig sabihin, dahil merong perpetual fear ng mga Amerikano about yung communism taking root, in several places, in several countries, gagamitin nilang kapangyarihan ng kanilang financial aid para ma-prevent yung mga bansa na ito from saying yes to communism. Kasi, meron kaming itutulong sa inyo, mga katulong sa economy ninyo, Kumbaga, ang ibalik nyo sa amin dun sa kabutihang loob na ibibigay namin sa inyo ay you adhere to the principles of democratic capitalism. So cyclical siya. If we support you, you support our yung our parang desire na parang hindi mag-take root yung communism. So that's the Truman Doctrine. To a certain extent related to that was the Marshall Plan. Itong Marshall Plan naman was to actually address the rehabilitation of Europe na na-devastate din noong panahon ng World War II. So, magbibigay ng financial aid to war-torn countries in Europe. At ito ay para, of course, makatulong na ma-rehabilitate the economy nila. Pero, ito po, in the larger context of things, ay para magkaroon ng utang na loob ang mga bansa na ito sa Amerika. At kapag nagkaroon ng utang na loob ang mga ito sa bansang Amerika, ay maniniwala sila at maninindigan sila na ipupush din nila yung American ideology na democratic capitalism. Once again, cyclical po siya. Give and take po siya. Will help you, Kasi war-torn kayo Wala kayong pera. Tutulungan namin kayo. Pero nakapaloob doon sa pagtulong na yun na parang eventually, kapag kayo ay stable na, you will become a market of our products. So therefore, kailangan nyo ng dolyares namin para may rehabilitate economy ninyo. Tapos, habang pinapapasok nyo yung dolyares at na-rehabilitate kayo, nape-prevent yung pag-take root ng communism. Kasi nakikinabang doon sa democratic capitalist na ideology. It was also, related din dyan yung policy of containment. The continued feud between the US and Soviet Union resulted in the split of Europe, yung sa Iron Curtain nga, the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. The Western Bloc, do not forget, democratic capitalist yan. Tapos yung Eastern Bloc po, yan po ay heavy on dun sa communist na principles po. And of course, the division of Germany. The Eastern one being more adherent to Soviet Union, tapos the Western one being more adherent to democratic ideas. Kaya there was a time na Germany yan, pero magkaiba ng buhay yung West at saka yung East. Okay. And during the Cold War as well, time check, 10:14, I would like to ask the 25 students in attendance kung nakakasunod pa po ba? Nakakasunod pa po ba tayo? I do hope that you have your notebooks with you at kayo nagtitake down ng notes. And of course, kahit nakahapon, of course, you still have over the weekend to read, no? The LGs po. Kasi, once again, hindi po lahat ng details in the LGs are actually mentioned, no? Mentioned during classroom discussions. Okay, moving forward po. During this time as well, Cold War, naipanganak ang tinatawag po nating the worlds. Yung sinasabi natin, First World, Second World, and Third World, yan po ay Cold War terminologies. Therefore, ano ba itong mga worlds na to? Pag sinabi natin First World, these are highly industrialized nations whose views aligned with the United States, Western Europe, and their allies and believed in capitalism and democracy. Ang Second World naman, yung sa kalaban ng Amerika, yung Soviet Union. No? And obviously, yung communism na tinatry ng Amerika na i-eliminate sa mundo. At yung Third World, actually, are nations na neither para sa Amerika or sa Soviet Union. Ngayon, maitatanong ninyo, bakit sir ang Philippines? Bakit po siya Third World? Di ba dapat po First World siya? Kasi sa definition doon, hindi siya magpapasa yung sa highly industrialized nation. So, at saka meron kasing additional definition ng Third World. Nasa baba po, no? It has become a term to collectively refer to societies, communities, and civilizations of the non-Western world. Check ang Philippines dyan, non-West po tayo. Usually located in the tropics, check. And colonized by foreign powers, check. Their economies are less industrialized, check. And are not completely modernized, check. Moreover, their people's standard of living is low, half check, kung may ganun. And they consider themselves relatively poor, check. The countries that belong to the Third World include African countries with the exception of South Africa, kasi in the entire African continent, relatively well-off talagang South Africa. Tapos in Asia naman, hindi kasama po yung Japan. Okay, tapos sa Latin, kasama din po yung mga bansa sa Latin America and the Caribbean. Ngayon, mapapansin niyo, sir, bakit hindi po kasama ang China? Well, ito kasi eventually magbabago po ito. No, magkakaroon ng pagbabago sa mga terminologies para mas maging, mas maging compatible sila with the current world order. Kaya hindi na talaga ito ginagamit. Ito ay remnant na po ng ng Cold War. Ang ginagamit na po nila ngayon ay developing countries, tapos developed nations. At meron pang iba sila. May Global South, may Global North, meron silang tinatawag na core, semi-periphery, periphery. Depende sa Depende sa perspective. Iba-iba ng terminologies para sa mga bansa. Pero gusto ko lang tandaan ninyo, itong worlds na to, yung first, second, and third, at yung mga descriptions nila, came during the time of the Cold War. Ngayon, bago tayo magkaroon ng short break, I would like you guys to think about this. Okay, sabi kasi, kilakihan natin. Ay, sobrang laki naman. Okay. Sabi ng isang German-born American political theorist na si Hannah Arendt, the Third World daw is not a reality but an ideology. Once again, the Third World daw is not a reality but an ideology. So time check is 10:18. Balik po kayo ng 10:25. Ito po ang pag-uusapan natin. Magtatawag po ako. Okay? Kapag walang sumagot, magtatawag po ako para tanungin kung ano ang kanyang say dito sa sinabi ni Hannah Arendt. Na hindi the reality ang Third World. It's more of an ideology. Very much like yung Cold War, it's an ideological battle between the states and the Soviet Union. Okay, balik po tayo ng 10:25. We'll take a break. Okay, I am back. Hello once again, Rubidium. Can you hear me po? Can you hear me? Okay. So, ang iniwan po natin ay itong quote, no, from Hannah Arendt, a German-born American political theorist. Sabi niya, "The third world is not a reality but an ideology." Can someone please share with us, no, kung ano sa tingin mo ang nais sabihin ng mga salita na ito ng philosopher at political theorist na si Hannah Arendt? Once again, the third world is not a reality but an ideology. Anyone? You can key in your answers po, so I will just read. Okay, let's look for someone. Okay. Okay, may nagtaas ng kamay. Ethan.
From what I understand from this statement, it's
Okay.
basically it's saying that like the ultimate idea in itself of there being a third world is ultimately a matter of perspective from other industrialized countries, because you're basically saying that you're basically setting industrialized countries like the US and Japan. They're basically setting themselves as a standard for other countries to follow, and they classify these third world countries as being less than their economies. So they're not setting it by a quantitative perspective, by numbers and by data or anything, but they're mostly quantifying it through qualitative perspectives, and their perspectives from industrialized and boosted economy.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Diamampo. Maganda yung sinabi mo na ang kukunin ko dyan yung concept ng perspective. It's a matter of perspective at kaninong perspective yung gagamitin para magkaroon ka ng hierarchy. May first, may second, at third. Sino nagsabi na ang first ay ito, second ay ito, at third ay ito? At bakit may ganitong klase ng orientation? So it's a matter actually of framing nations according to several descriptions na maaring nasa perspective lang ng iisang grupo ng mga tao, no? To relate to that answer, no, allow me to read this, no, kasi sa tingin ko compatible yung sinabi ni Mr. Diamampo sa sinabing ito ng aking estudyante yung pinasagot ko sa kanila ito noong May 2, 2022. Sabi ni Mr. Mercado, in my view, Hannah Arendt's quote, "The third world is not a reality but an ideology," tries to convey that the concept of the third world is something that shouldn't be taken as absolute. No? It is but a mere ideology that separates the so-called poor countries based on the standards of the rich ones. Kasi once again, no, tama yung sinabi ni Mr. Diamampo, it's a matter of perspective, at kaninong perspective yung mangingibabaw or gagamitin natin para i-understand at i-make sense yung descriptions ng bawat worlds po na ito. Sabi ni Mr. Mercado, dagdag niya, it assumes a hierarchy between countries, painting the more developed countries as better or ideal when it doesn't necessarily mean so. Alam nyo, I am currently reading a book about China, and what I'm realizing as early as now, kasi wala pa ako sa kalahati. I'm taking my time reading that book about China's rise to power because maraming insights so far do sa first 2 chapters pa lamang na nababasa ko. At isa sa insights ko is related to what we're talking about right now. Sabi doon, nung gumawa ng libro, nagsulat ng libro na pinag-aaralan talaga niya ang China for a very, very, very long time, that there is no ultimate path to modernity. Madalas iniisip natin na ang pattern for modernity, ang example for modernity ang West, pero napatunayan ng China na it has its own path. Yes, meron pa ring traces of Western influence, pero it is something that you cannot say totally Western. Diba? Parang, kung capitalism yan, it's not American capitalism, it's Chinese capitalism. It's a different kind of capitalism. It's a different path to modernity. Therefore, ilagay natin yung ganong klase ng perspective dito. Diba? Ang isa pang pwede nating halimbawa dyan ay ganito. We always look at industrialized nations ay wow, very advanced, very innovative sila. Pero yun lang ang pinoproject nila. No? Pinoproject nila. Pero totoo ba na parang 100% lahat ng area dun sa bansa nila na di umano ay na highly industrialized ay talagang highly industrialized sa kikinabang? No. Isang halimbawa sa States. Diba? Ang nakikita lang natin ay yung luxury, nakita lang natin yung mga nagtataas sa mga buildings, yung ganitong way of life. Pero merong part ng Amerika na pag titignan mo is very, very third world. Diba? Ano yun? No? Same thing with yung mga tinatawag naman na third world. If you go to yung tinasabi nila mga third world countries, you will notice na in their cities, no, there are certain places in the country that are very, very first world. When it comes to the use of technology, yung lifestyle ng mga tao doon, it's very first world. But of course, no, meron ding mukha ng third world, if you know what I mean. Bottom line, yung ideology na ito na naghihiwalay sa first, second, and third world based sa mga description din nila, ay mere projection, no, na gusto ng mga particular na bansa na ibigay natin para makita natin kung ano daw ang kanilang image or projection sa kanilang mga sarili. And in the first place, tama yung sinabi ni Mr. Diamampo kanina, it's a matter of perspective. Pero kaninong perspective ang gagamitin natin to really make sense of ano ang first world, ano ang second world, ano ang third world, ano yung images na pwede natin makita sa mga ito. Ngayon nga, na wala ng Cold War, sinasabi nila, it's about time na ipahinga na natin yung mga terminologies na yan and start making use of more up-to-date terms, no, to describe yung situation po ng mundo ngayon. Na-mention ko kanina, Global South, Global North, core, semi-periphery, periphery, no? We have yung tinatawag po nila na present world order na meron ding iba't ibang klase ng mga perspectives kung paano mo titignan yung sitwasyon ng mga bansa. No? So ito po ay born out of the Cold War. And makita nyo dito kung kaninong perspective yung nangingibabaw. Definitely yun doon sa first world. Though, nung fall of the Berlin Wall, at saka yung disintegration ng Soviet Union, makita naman natin na sinasabi nila na ang nangibabaw talaga na superpower ay ang United States of America. But still, no, it is still an ideology na maaring hindi talaga totoo at all times. Okay? So, ayan, time check 10:32. Yung nilalabi po nating minuto ay ilalaan natin sa pag-uusap tungkol sa China-Taiwan. Okay, so I'll stop presenting. I will be sharing with you the PDF files of the two lectures later on. So allow me to share another PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Ito naman po tayo. Sa China-Taiwan po tayo. Okay, so China-Taiwan, ayan, nakikita niyo po yan. Actually, hindi to ganun ka-updated kasi hindi na po si sino nga tong Tsai Ing-wen, na hindi na po siya yung president ng Taiwan. Okay? Kasi ito si Xi Jinping. Kung papansinin po ninyo yung backdrop po nitong slide na ito, the proposal is peaceful. Tapos they have here the dragon, the Chinese symbol. Tapos they wanted to have a unification with Taiwan. And Taiwan, mula dito sa nakita po natin sa picture, ay para baga natatakot. Pero in reality po, Taiwan, it's actually holding its ground, no? Because it knows na it has the support of the international community. And China cannot actually afford to actually further escalate the tension kasi it would give them a backlash, no? Kapag sila ay nag-pursue pa nito. Okay, so once again, ito pong tinatalakay natin na topic ay bahagi ng module number 1. Ang dami po niyan. So, nandiyan United Nations, yung Cold War, tapos emergence of the Third World. Pansinin nyo, walang 1.5. Kasi nga, ito po yung panahon na nung fourth quarter ay sinimplify yung mga tinuturo. Kaya ilang LGs lamang yung in-include. Tinanggal na yung 1.5. Parang tinimbang ko ano na yung mga importanteng ituro sa mga estudyante during the time. Tapos, nagstay siya, naging status ko siya up to this day. So, we'll end with China-Taiwan conflict. Yung 1.6, the emergence of third world, sinama ko na lang siya dun sa taas kasi, Cold War siya. Okay, so we have a total of 9 targets or objectives po. Okay, Miss Casañeda?
Sir, I'm just curious, why can't China face backlash? Because even if other countries start turning away from them, China's still very important in the economy of the world and how the world moves. Because I don't know, a lot of things are made in China and all that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, I think that China is actually very good pagdating doon sa balancing act nila, no? And of course, there are several vulnerable economies who still are very reliant on China. One good example of that would be the Philippines, though that was during the time of Duterte, no? And during the current time of Marcos, yes, may pagka-friendly pa rin sa China, pero nagli-lean towards the American foreign policy na. Kasi yung America naman has been our partner for a very, very long time, no? Since actually nung early 20th century pa. Pero may backlash sa China actually. Kahit, di ba nga, pinagtatawanan natin ng Chinese products as mahinang klase ng produkto. Pero kasi may mga markets pa rin talaga na kumbaga tumatanggap ng mga Chinese products whether we like it or not. No? So, ibig sabihin, in spite of yung mga opposition natin with regard to Chinese products being hindi masyadong sturdy or matibay, nandiyan pa rin talaga yung parang promise ng China pagdating po doon sa mga markets na sinusuportahan nito. One good example na binabanggit mo, Ms. Castañeda, yung Africa. Chinese products, bumabaha po niyan sa Africa. Africa is a very vulnerable continent. No, South Africa is the more developed economy. The rest of Africa po is struggling actually. And they have China as the number 1 country na nagpo-provide po ng financial aid sa kanila in exchange of several infrastructure development projects na very pro-China ang datingan. At pangalawa, yung pagbaha po sa mga local markets in Africa ng Chinese products. So as long as merong mga kasi pag sa negotiation ng ganyan, of course, magmumukha na yung mga talaga, yung mga powerful countries just like China sa panahon po na ito, kumbaga magbibigay sila ng good deal, naiisipin mo na parang makakuha ka talaga ng advantage. But in the long run, hindi talaga to friendly kasi maraming ekonomiya ngayon sa Africa lalong-lalo na ang reliant na talaga sa China, na parang sila ay held hostage na ng China. So, in spite of the backlash, kasi siya, we have to really face the truth na China is there at kailangan natin na talagang makibagay din sa isang mundo na ang malaking impluwensya ay nagmumula po sa China without actually making us becoming more vulnerable to them. Kaya binabantayan natin kung ano yung magiging aksyon ng gobyerno natin when it comes to yung usapin natin sa West Philippine Sea, tapos yung mga yung POGO, 'di ba? Yung pagkakaroon ng mga napakaraming Chinese workers in the Philippines na yung iba sinasabi na mga SPA lang yan ng China dito sa Pilipinas whatsoever. So parang ayon. Yes, may opposition sa China, pero kasi may nabibigay din ng China. May nabibigay din ng China na talagang kinakapitan partnership, pera. At kailangan po yan ng maraming mga bansa kahit na hindi level ang playing field. Kasi of course, if you are the more powerful country, na you cannot afford na yung nakikipag-negotiate sa'yo o yung mas mahirap na bansa sa'yo ang magde-decide ng mga terms at conditions ng inyong usapan. No, definitely. Ilalagay mo lang siya in a way na parang na parang friendly to both, pero actually, iisipin mo na dapat mas makikinabang ka dyan. Ganyan po ang friendship ng mga bansa sa isa't isa. Ganyan, may mga talaga certain gains ka na makukuha, pero you have to make sure na parang you still uphold your sovereignty as a nation. Yan yung issue sa atin. Na parang sabi ni Marcos, we cannot actually risk na parang mag-escalate ang tension. Kasi may acknowledgement pa rin that China is actually contributing very much to our economy. We cannot afford to lose China. Pero we cannot naman totally kowtow to China. So it's a balancing act. And I think China from their end is also doing the same thing. It's also doing the same thing. Pero of course, advancing pa rin talaga yung kanilang interest. Ayan. So allow me to share with you the story of the China-Taiwan conflict using several quotes. Okay, quotes. Okay, let's begin with this one by Annette Lu. Okay, a Taiwanese politician. Sabi niya, Taiwan and China are related ethnically and close neighbors geographically. Totoo yan, napakalapit lang ng Taiwan at ng China sa isa't isa. There's no reason to resent or to fight against each other. Unfortunately, nagpa-fight because Taiwan wants to maintain its political independence. China wants it back. No? Yes, China and Taiwan are related ethnically. Totoo. Mga Chinese din yan eh. Mga Chinese din ang mga nasa Taiwan. Pero nga, politically speaking, at this point in time, tinuturing na ng mga Taiwanese ang kanilang mga sarili na separate from the mainland. So, doon nagsisimula yung gusot. The other party wants reunification. The other one wants to maintain status quo. At yung status quo is speaking political independence. Taiwan as Taiwan and Taiwan not as a province of China. Okay, if you will remember, ayan po, the Communist Revolution, Civil War, 1946 to 1949, post-war na po ito. Remember, naalala nyo, nung panahon ng World War II, because nandyan sa picture ng Japan bilang aggressor, nagkaisa ang nationalist at saka ang communist. Nagkaisa sila kasi they had a common enemy. And when the war ended, nag-resume ang kanilang conflict sa isa't isa. At dun na mabubuo yung Taiwan as a separate nation from their perspective. Tapos of course, the communists will become victorious in the mainland. Yan po ay sa pangunguna po ni Mao Zedong. And up to this day, the Communist Party of China is a very powerful party in China. Sabi pa ni Annette Lu, Taiwan does not oppose that there is only one China in the world, but that does not mean, ito ang ganda na sinabi niya, is part of China. Yes, there's only one China. Because we do not consider us as part of China. We are Taiwan. And Taiwan, yes, we are Chinese, but we are not China. Because China is the People's Republic of China. We are Taiwan. Alam nyo guys, may political aspect din yung pangalan. Diba? Yes, may one China. China kasi yun talagang People's Republic of China. We call ourselves Taiwan. And Taiwan, yes, related kami sa China, pero we are now asserting our right to be independent. So yung sinasabi nga ni Annette Lu. Sabi pa ni Tsai Ing-wen, I am not clear what the US means when they use the term entity. For us here in Taiwan, we believe that we are a country, a democratic country. Kasi pag sinabing entity, no, parang minamaliit mo yung Taiwan. Well, in a world na nagsusubscribe to a one China policy, Taiwan actually does not exist as a country. Pero, surprisingly, Taiwan is actually thriving as an economy. Kasi in spite of not being supported by many nations in the world officially, ang mga bansa po sa mundo have actually ties with Taiwan. And they believe kasi Taiwan is the better China. No, kung kung nandun ka sa orientation na parang you consider also Taiwan as China, it's the better China, no, kaysa doon sa isa pang China na mainland, no. So ito, sabi ng former president ng Taiwan, consider as a country, we so believe na kami po ay isang bansa. Unfortunately, the international community, not all nations actually adhere to that because of the one China policy. According to her as well, Taiwan is and always will be a champion of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law across the globe. It's a democratic miracle, Taiwan. Ang China, ang dami niyang human rights abuses. Kaya every now and then, kinakatok po yan ng China. No, kasi grabe yung mag-crackdown sa mga dissidents. Pero Taiwan is a different story. Taiwan upholds human rights, upholds democracy, upholds freedom. Guys, ang first country to guarantee same-sex marriage is Taiwan. Kaya ako in the future, sabi ko dahil sa mga kaibigan ko, kapag nagkaroon ako ng jowa at magpapakasal ako, sabi ko, sa Taiwan ako magpapakasal. Kasi malapit, madaling ilipad ng mga friends, papuntang Pilipinas. At ang Taiwan is actually talagang very serious in making sure that LGBT rights are secured and protected. May rule of law, Taiwan. I've been to Taiwan and Taiwan is exceptional talaga. I love Taiwan. I've never been to China, by the way. No? Many call Taiwan a democratic miracle, but I don't believe in miracles. I believe in the will of the people and their vision for a better world. Kasi the Taiwanese people are talaga, majority of them believes na they should maintain the status quo, and that is being away from the clout of China. That's why during the time of the Umbrella Revolution in Hong Kong, they were actually closely monitoring what's happening in Hong Kong kasi kung ano mangyari sa Hong Kong ay maaring sapitin or maaring maranasan ng Taiwan. Fortunately, na parang nagagawa pa rin ng Taiwan na panatilihin yung kanyang political independence, na nagagawa niya protektahan yung kanyang sarili mula sa talagang presensya ng China sa paligid. Kaya up to this day, mananatili po ang labanan ng ideology sa pagitan ng China and Taiwan. And, okay, last two slides. Okay, the majority of Taiwan people cannot accept Taiwan becoming a second Hong Kong. Kasi Hong Kong is a special administrative region. Taiwan does not consider itself as an SAR. Parang Taiwan is a different story, no? Nor can we accept Taiwan becoming a local government. Kasi alam nila ang China, sa Taiwan, sa Hong Kong pa nga lang grabe ang impluwensya ng Beijing sa local politics, kahit na dapat pag SAR ka, meron kang somewhat na local autonomy, pero no, napansin nila na ang nalalagay sa position sa Hong Kong is always pro-China. Kaya yung mga Hong Kongers, they cannot actually exercise their freedom. No, talagang nai-infiltrate pa rin ito ng Chinese ideas na ayaw nila. Ang Taiwan hindi papayag diyan. No? Ayun, SAR, no? Ayaw din nila maging local government kasi they very well know kung ano ang China pagdating sa pagkontrol sa mga tao. And lastly, allow me to use a Turkish guy, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the father of the Turks, the father of Turkish independence, sovereignty is not given, it is taken. Kaya ito ang ginamit ko kasi yun ang ginawa ng Taiwan. Magmula nung lumipad saan yung mga personal nationalist at umiba doon sa mga communist, at kahit maliit sila, hindi sila nagpapaapi sa Goliath, no? Yung sovereignty kasi nila pinapanindigan nila. It is something na pinaglalaban talaga nila. No? Kasi hindi siya automatic. Kailangan mo talaga siyang araw-araw trabahuhin. Kasi every now and then, guys, tinututukan ng China ng missiles yan Pero hindi nagpapa-intimidate ang Taiwan. And Taiwan continues to be what it is, a thriving economy. So that's the story of the China-Taiwan conflict. Pasensya na nag-extend tayo. Siguro mag-entertain na lang po ako ng questions sa group chat kung meron po kayong questions. I would like to get your thumbs up kung okay po ba yung discussion natin. Nag-gets naman po natin yung discussion natin. Do not hesitate to ask me kung meron kayong hindi naunawaan. Kasi pwede po tayo magkaroon ng one-on-one. And once again, please read your LGs from cover to cover because not all the details found in your LGs were mentioned during this discussion. And with that, thank you very much to the 26 students who attended this morning's session. And now the class is dismissed. Do not forget your situation worksheet to be submitted po sa aking personal email and not on my work email. Have a nice day ahead, Rubidium.
Goodbye and thank you.
See you when I see you. See you when I see you.
Goodbye and
Bye.
thank you, sir.
Thank you po.
Thank you.